Hello, thanks for joining me. Today I want to show you a technique called Emboss Resist. And basically this technique involves heat embossing, which we'll do a little bit of, and it involves doing some sponging of ink around the heat embossed image. So I'm going to show you how to make this particular card with the Emboss Resist technique. So to get started, we are actually going to use, I have some things pre-cut out, so let me just tell you a little bit about some of the supplies I have here. So I've embossed the cardstock with one of the new embossing folders, which is one of my favorite, called Filigree Frame. So this is all set and ready for us to begin our stamping. And then I also cut just a small piece of cardstock. I cut it 4 by 3 so that it would fit inside the frame once we're done embossing it. So what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to use the embossing buddy and just lightly rub across my cardstock. And you'll notice I actually also just kind of rounded the edges with a little punch here. So once I've rubbed this down with the embossing buddy, then I'm going to use one of the stamps from the seasonally scattered stamp set. We're actually going to use the Mary stamp. And I'm going to take this and ink it up with some Versamark. So Versamark is what's going to make our embossing powder stick. So I'll just ink that up and then stamp it right onto my cardstock. And it's a sticky substance. And then you probably can't see anything right now because it's a clear, sticky substance, so that when I sprinkle my embossing powder on there, it will stick. So now I'm just gonna generously put some embossing powder on this. And I wanna make sure that I cover all of my inked image here. And I don't know if you can see that, it's very light. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat emboss it. All right, and I know that my image has been embossed because it turns, the actual powder turns from a grayish color to a shiny white. So you probably can't see that very well in this video, but I will show you how you will be able to see it. So now what we're gonna do, now that we have this embossed, we're gonna do the Emboss Resist technique. So I'm gonna use some ink. And actually we're using Soft Sky so that it'll match our card. And I'm just going to ink up my my sponge. And these sponges, they actually come in a big round circle, so I just cut them into little pie-shaped pieces so that I can work better with them. And I always kind of practice on my paper with the sponging so that I can get the hang of how I want this to look. Okay, so I usually just start right in the middle and I just start sponging. And what you'll notice as I'm doing this is that the ink is actually, it's not sticking to the embossing, but it's sticking to the cardstock behind the embossing. And so that's the resist part. So it's, the ink is resisting, I guess, the embossing or the embossed image that you did. So I'm just going to keep swirling this ink around until I get this image the way I want it. That'll be good, I think. All right. So now you can see how, even though you couldn't see the white because I was embossing white on white, now that I've sponged a bit of color on there, it just kind of brings out the image and leaves the white embossing on the image and brings out the pieces behind it or the parts behind it. So this is one of my favorite techniques for embossing, and I use it with quite a few images. So, all right, so let's put the card together. So all I did was just mount this piece directly on the card. Added just a little bit of ribbon. I just tied a little piece of ribbon on there, added a little lace doily or paper doily, and that's it. Very simple, but yet beautiful Christmas card. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on the Emboss Resist technique. Thanks for watching.